The rain was tapping against the kitchen window, a rhythmic, monotonous sound that had become the soundtrack of my life for the last 25 years. It was a Tuesday afternoon in November, the kind of gray, heavy day that makes you want to curl up under a blanket and forget the world exists. I was standing by the sink, washing a coffee mug, watching the suds dissolve in the warm water. My name is Elena, and for decades I have been a woman defined by a single, shattering event. But that afternoon, the phone rang. It wasn't a frantic late-night call. It was just a standard midday ring that cut through the silence of my empty house in Seattle. I dried my hands on a towel and picked it up, expecting a telemarketer or perhaps a reminder about a dental appointment. "Is this Elena Vance?" a woman's voice asked. She sounded professional, guarded, but there was an undercurrent of anxiety that made my stomach tighten. "Yes, speaking," I replied. "Mrs. Vance, my name is Dr. Sarah Sterling. I'm calling from the St. Jude Medical Center in Portland. I need you to sit down." I didn't sit. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "What is this about?" "Mrs. Vance, we have a patient here. She was admitted 2 days ago after being found confused and wandering near the highway. She has been in a fugue state, unable to recall her identity until this morning. When she finally spoke, she gave us your name. She claims to be your daughter, Clara." The world stopped. The sound of the rain faded into a dull buzz. My legs gave out and I slid down to the linoleum floor. The phone pressed against my ear. "That's not possible," I whispered, my voice trembling. "My daughter is dead. Clara died 25 years ago. We buried her. I visit her grave every Sunday." There was a heavy silence on the other end. "I know this is incredibly difficult to hear, Mrs. Vance, but the woman here, she knows things. She has a scar on her right forearm shaped like a lightning bolt. She says she got it falling off a swing set when she was 7. She also mentioned a song, a lullaby about a silver ship sailing to the moon. She says you used to sing it to her when she had nightmares." I stopped breathing. The scar, the lightning bolt scar. We had never released that detail to the press. The police reports mentioned a scar, but never the shape and the lullaby. That was something I had made up, just for her, just for my little Clara. Tears began to stream down my face, hot and fast. "I'm coming," I choked out. "I'm coming right now." The drive to Portland usually took 3 hours. I made it in 2.5, my hands shaking on the steering wheel the entire time. My husband, Arthur, wasn't there to hold my hand. He had passed away 5 years ago, his heart giving out under the weight of a grief that never fully healed. He had died believing our daughter was gone. The injustice of that thought almost made me pull over and scream. For 25 years, we had lived in a house that was a museum of loss. Clara had vanished on her way to a piano lesson when she was 16. Just gone. No witnesses, no clues. 3 years after she disappeared, hikers found a body in a dense forest 50 miles away. The decomposition was advanced, but the dental records were a close enough match, or so they said. We were tired. We were broken. We accepted the closure because the not knowing was killing us. We buried the body. We mourned. We tried to live. When I walked into the hospital, the antiseptic smell hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Sterling met me in the lobby. She looked young, kind, with eyes that held too much sympathy. She led me down a long beige corridor. "Before we go in," she said softly, stopping outside room 304. "You need to prepare yourself. She doesn't look like the 16-year-old girl you remember. She has had a very hard life. She has been living under the name Maya for over 2 decades. Her memory is fragmented. She may not recognize you immediately, or she may be overwhelmed." I nodded, unable to speak. Dr. Sterling opened the door. The woman sitting in the chair by the window was looking out at the gray sky. She was thin, frail, her hair streaked with premature gray, cut short and uneven. Her skin was weathered, telling stories of exposure to the sun and wind. She looked nothing like the vibrant, bouncy teenager who had walked out of my door with sheet music in her bag. But then she turned to look at me. It was the eyes. They were the same piercing emerald green, the same shape, the same soul looking out from a different battered vessel. "Mom?" she whispered. The voice was raspy, deeper, but the inflection was hers. I let out a sob that had been trapped in my chest for a quarter of a century. I crossed the room and fell to my knees beside her chair, burying my face in her lap. Her hands, rough and calloused, hesitated for a moment before resting on my head. They were shaking. "It's really you," I cried. "Oh God, Clara, you're alive." We stayed like that for a long time. No words, just the feeling of presence, the undeniable reality of flesh and blood where there had only been ghosts. Eventually, I sat on the edge of the bed, holding her hand, tracing the lightning bolt scar on her arm with my thumb. It was real. Over the next few days, the story came out in pieces. It wasn't a linear narrative. It was a broken mosaic of horror and survival. She hadn't run away. She had been taken. A van, a man asking for directions, a needle in the neck. She woke up in a basement miles and miles away. She was held there for 2 years. Then there was a fire. In the chaos, she escaped. But the trauma was so severe, her mind had simply shut down. She entered a state of dissociative amnesia. She didn't know who she was. She became Maya. She drifted from city to city, working in diners, cleaning motels, staying in shelters. She survived. She aged, she forgot. "So, what happened?" I asked her gently on the 3rd day. "How did you remember?" Clara looked down at her coffee cup. "It was a music box," she said softly. "I was walking past an antique store in downtown Portland. Someone had wound up a music box outside on a table. It was playing that melody. The Silver Ship." I stopped. I stood there for an hour just listening to it loop. And suddenly, I saw the swing set. I saw the kitchen with the yellow curtains. I saw you. It hit me so hard I passed out. When I woke up in the ambulance, I knew my name wasn't Maya. The police came. Detectives who looked too young to remember the original case. They took DNA samples. They asked questions. But the elephant in the room was the grave in Seattle. The grave I had visited faithfully for 22 years. The grave next to Arthur's. "If you are Clara," I said, my voice trembling with a new kind of horror, "then who did we bury?" The DNA results came back a week later. It was a match. 99.99%. This battered, weary woman was my Clara. The police immediately reopened the case of the Jane Doe we had buried. With modern technology, they retested the remains. It turned out to be a girl named Sophie, a runaway from Oregon who had disappeared around the same time as Clara. Sophie's parents had died without ever knowing what happened to her. It was a tragedy within a miracle. I felt a strange, guilty grief for Sophie, the girl I had spoken to, cried over, and brought flowers to for decades. I promised myself I would find her remaining family, distant cousins perhaps, and give them the truth. Bringing Clara home was not the fairy tale ending people imagine. She was 41 years old now. She was a stranger in her own childhood home. Her room had been packed away years ago. She didn't know how to use a smartphone. She panicked if the front door was unlocked. She had nightmares that made her scream in a voice that curdled my blood. But there were moments of light. One morning, I found her sitting at the old upright piano. Her fingers were stiff, but she was picking out a melody, the same piece she was supposed to play at her recital the week she vanished. She looked up at me and smiled, a small, tentative thing, but it reached her eyes. "I forgot how this part goes," she said. "I have the sheet music," I told her, tears pricking my eyes. "I kept it all. We are learning to know each other again. I am not the same mother she left. I am older, sadder, softer. She is not the daughter I lost. She is a survivor, hardened by a world I can barely imagine." We sit on the porch in the evenings, watching the rain, drinking tea. She tells me about the years she lost, the people she met as Maya, the small kindnesses she experienced from strangers, the sunsets she watched alone. I tell her about her father, how much he loved her, how he never really stopped looking until his heart stopped beating. One evening, she turned to me. "I'm sorry I wasn't there," she said. "I'm sorry Dad died thinking I was gone." "He knows," I said firmly, looking up at the break in the clouds where a single star was visible. "He knows now. The legal battles are ongoing. The investigation into her kidnapping is cold, the man likely dead or long gone, but the detectives are trying. The process to exhume Sophie and return her to her rightful name is underway. It is messy and painful. The media wants interviews. They want the sensational story of the girl who came back from the dead. I turn them all away. This is not a story for them. This is our life. Yesterday, we went to the cemetery, not to visit the grave that used to be hers, but to visit Arthur. Clara stood in front of the headstone for a long time. She traced her father's name with her fingers. Then she pulled something out of her pocket. It was a small, smooth stone she had carried with her for years as Maya. She placed it on top of the headstone. "I'm home, Dad," she whispered. The wind rustled the leaves of the oak trees, a sound like a sigh. I put my arm around my daughter's shoulders. She leaned into me, solid and warm. The nightmare of the last 25 years was over. We had a mountain to climb to heal, to integrate the past with the present, but we would climb it together. As we walked back to the car, Clara hummed a tune under her breath. It was the lullaby, the song about the silver ship sailing to the moon. It wasn't a sad song anymore. It was a song of return, a song that said no matter how far you drift, no matter how dark the ocean gets, there is always a way back to the shore. My daughter was home. And for the first time in 25 years, the silence in the house wasn't empty. It was peaceful. The rain had stopped, and the clouds were breaking apart, revealing the vast, enduring sky. We were going to be okay.